Open your eyes.
The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild has many things, but what it doesn't have is a wonderful and legendary title screen like this, and I feel it so deserves one. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild also doesn't have dive-in similar to this, when I think that it would have been a very nice inclusion indeed. Right, now that I have my only two major gripes with this game out of the way, let me talk about the best video game I've ever played, and in my humble opinion, it's the best game ever made. Breath of the Wild for me is the epitome of what video games are, the very heart and soul of what this wonderful and creative industry strives to achieve. If someone asked me before to hold up a single game that encapsulated the essence of video games, something that I feel could appeal to the largest possible demographic, as well as show them how creative and fun this industry can be, I would have probably lifted up Super Mario 64 on the Nintendo 64. Super Mario 64 to this day continues to be that goal that many developers strive to reach in terms of near gaming perfection. Everything from its wonderful controls, creative level design, its small little details, the thoroughly enjoyable soundtrack from the legend that is Koji Kondo, its inner magic, and finally down to the main star himself, Mario, a character that is without a doubt the face of video games, an enduring icon that is more recognizable to kids than Mickey Mouse. Now, if someone asked me today to hold up a game that encapsulated the essence of video games, I would have two games to hold up. Both games from the same company who I also personally consider to be the very essence of video games, and that's Nintendo, of course, the godfathers of this young industry, the one company that has changed it for the better in more ways than I can count. When the name Breath of the Wild was first revealed after that wonderful trailer showcasing the varied landscapes of this game and the many things that you will be able to do, everyone agreed that it was a great name for the Zelda title, but I don't think anyone could have anticipated how apt that name would be, and this for me is the true achievement of this game. Just how alive Nintendo has made the environment and how the player connects with it both emotionally and through gameplay. It's hard to describe how truly beautiful and organic this world is through mere words and pictures. On a clear sunny day in Hyrule, you can sit on your horse out in a lush green open field and truly feel the nature of the world moving around you as well as interacting with you. The breath of the wind kicks up leaf particles that dance on the breeze. The breeze blows through the hair of your horse's mane, along with yours. The ever changing and truly dynamic clouds move and evolve across the stunning sky, occasionally blocking out the sun and casting multiple shadows on the land that can change the color of the world in stunning detail. These aren't just fake visual effects that don't impact the game in any way. That wind is alive and real. The weather is alive and real. Something that this game achieves absolutely wonderfully. This leads me onto the other real aspects of this game. I previously done a video where I said that you should compare this game to, say, Half-Life 2's real world physics and not the Skyrims of the industry. Except Breath of the Wild elevates it into a gameplay realm of absolute joy and fun experimentation that very, very rarely lets you down, keeping you locked up in that illusion that this world is alive and wants you to feel it through every second. Once you throw in the core skills that are granted to you in the first hour of the game, like the bombs that can be thrown, rolled, or placed down, the magnet that can lift any metallic object, the ability to freeze water to create ice blocks that can be stood on or climbed up, and the stasis technique, which allows you to freeze certain objects for a moment in time, as well as hit said objects to build up kinetic energy that propels the objects once the time expires, and you have a recipe of gameplay skills that allows for a myriad of gameplay beyond anything that I've played before. Then you have your sprinting, your stamina, your ability to climb virtually any surface, your jumping, your swimming, and the greatest skill in the game, I feel, your ability to glide with your paraglider, and you're given the ability to truly venture anywhere. This is gaming's first open air game, remember? A phrase coined by Nintendo that we all might have laughed at first, but it's true. The Breath of the Wild is not only in a league of its own, it's in a brand new genre of its own. And anyone else who tries to enter this open air genre for the first time have one hell of a mountain to climb. Never have I felt so free in a gaming environment. It's been absolutely years for me where I've been in a game world that truly feels built from the ground up, with the player's interaction and gaming experience always taken into consideration. Xenoblade Chronicles X set a wonderful sense of exploration for the player, that feeling that you can go anywhere you see, thanks to the game's high jump mechanic and the ability to fly in mech suits known as scales. That illusion was maintained to an extent. Breath of the Wild retains this sense of exploration, but far exceeds Xenoblade Chronicles and other similar games by making the physics, weather, and the environments immensely more interactive and alive. There's something melancholy about this Hyrule, a land almost forgotten and left to the elements. But this is the premise of Breath of the Wild. This Hyrule has in some way been abandoned, its remaining inhabitants clinging on to whatever life they have left, and in the back of their minds there is that looming threat, that age-old evil that wants nothing more than to smother the land in darkness. But at the same time, this is single-handedly the most stunningly beautiful Hyrule that has ever been, and also the most beautiful game I've ever played. Grass of varying lengths dance on the breeze, morning mist lifts off the ground and floats across the land, tree-rich forests sing and dance to the world, creating their own natural symphonies. The snow-covered regions of the highest points of the world sparkle in the sun and the moonlight, looking both beautiful and dangerous at the same time. Desert sands drift through the air, sparkling in sunlight. Rivers flow down from the mountains and carve their way through the landscape. And then there are the sunrises and sunsets, which have to be seen to be believed. There was never a single moment during my playthrough where I didn't stop and take in such wondrous sights. Absolutely beautiful. The Studio Ghibli-like aesthetics of Breath of the Wild are sensational. There's no other way to put it. This Hyrule is a gaming environment that is nothing short of phenomenal. The best fantasy environment I've ever played in, hands down. This leads me onto another one of the game's greatest achievements, and that's the objectives. Set not by the game, but by yourself as the player. From the start, there is only one main objective, and that main objective remains throughout the entire game, which is to destroy Ganon. Everything in between is essentially completely optional. Naturally, there are plenty of other diverse and enjoyable quest lines in between that you can do to make your experience far more enjoyable than running straight to the final boss. Something that would be extremely difficult, but I'm sure there is some gaming lunatic with mad skills out there who could achieve it somehow. But in regards to exploring the world, you set this by climbing the various towers that activate once you progress through an early part of the story, or climbing to another high vantage point. You yourself survey the land and decide what you personally consider to be points of interest. And trust me, this game has more points of interest than any other game I've played before. Even when you activate the towers and it reveals a region of the map remains virtually nameless and has no objectives. It's up to you to mark the map yourself and head in that direction, or return to it at a later date. This I found to be pure genius. Forget those other open world maps from games like Assassin's Creed, The Witcher, Skyrim, etc., that are littered with mostly pointless markers to artificially extend gameplay. Every marker you make has a purpose for yourself in this game, setting your own end goals, whilst you can also get easily distracted along the way. I found this to be a real sense of adventure. Not a manufactured one, but a real one that pits you against the elements, forcing you to explore, probe, and investigate all you can see in this Hyrule. It's truly a thing of beauty to explore in this game. And what else is a thing of beauty are the open spots in between. Those moments where you can run or gallop, take a breather, take in the sights before getting back to the content-rich areas of this game. For me, those quiet moments are so important. The level of detail in this game is something that I ask for in many games. I've done a video on this channel titled High Fidelity Graphics Lacking Substance, where I talk about some of those little incidental details that many developers leave out of their games for whatever reasons. For me, the inclusion of such details don't just add to the immersion, as that's what we all want from our games, right? To be immersed. And for me, it takes more than just shiny graphics and a good soundtrack to be immersed, but it also adds to the gameplay. Something that is very important to me as a gamer. Breath of the Wild is one of the most detailed games I've ever played, and the small details in this game are some of my greatest and fondest memories from my playthrough. Swim through a body of water that has leaves floating on the surface, and the leaves will part out of the way as you move through. Sail through the sky with your glider, only for a strong gust of wind to suddenly push you in another direction, forcing you to correct yourself as best as you can. Try to climb something whilst it's raining, and you lose your grip much quicker due to the now slippery surface. This one detail alone might infuriate some players, but for me, it showed how the entire world is a puzzle that forces the player to rethink their strategy, and reward for your quick thinking is also just around the corner, even if that is literally just getting to the top of the mountain whilst it's raining. Shoot your arrows and miss your target, and that arrow can be retrieved no matter what the distance it traveled. Kick a treasure chest without any shoes on, and Link grabs his foot in pain. Stand on a shop counter and try to talk to the clerk or act in an inappropriate manner in front of NPCs, and you will get a surprising reaction. NPCs run for shelter during heavy rainstorms, whilst also holding their hands over their heads and going back to their homes where they dry off. Try to talk to them during such times when they're running out of the rain, and they'll tell you, now is not the best time. Everything moves in the direction that the wind is blowing, even down to the smallest blades of grass, the clouds, flags, hair on NPCs, creatures, and yourself. And if the wind is strong enough, it will also move objects like light boxes, apples on the floor, and other various objects. The sound of your footprints vary greatly over the many different surfaces in the game. You honestly, at least for me, don't need the visual soundbar near the minimap on the screen. Just listen, and the game tells you everything you need to know. That includes Link's physically shaking if he's cold, or panting heavily if he's too hot. Throw things into water from different heights, and depending on their weight and size, they'll make different dunking sounds. Also, depending on the depth of the water. Or glide through a waterfall using your glider, and it'll push you down from the weight of the water. And yes, water even puts out your torch, whether it's raining, you walk through a waterfall holding it, or a trickle of water from a ceiling puts it out. I absolutely love little details like this. Speaking of rain, when it's heavy enough, pools of water gather in points around the world and grow larger the more it rains. Once the sun comes out, those pools of rainwater start to recede. Absolutely, amazing detail. Honestly, as you can see, I could go on forever about the wonderful details in this game, as there are a wealth more. They make up a very large portion of what makes this game so special. Nintendo, clearly knew players would experiment in many different ways or be in certain environments at any given time, and they didn't want to let players down by not including such details. Even if some were basic, the thought was there and maintained that illusion. In AAA games like this in today's industry, there are certain things that I almost always look out for, mostly because I feel they should mostly be standard by now, or at least taken into consideration in some form. These are obvious things like good controls, good camera, and good technical performance, depending on the hardware. But we've had so many other games before that have achieved these things. I feel like there is no excuse to get them wrong anymore, unless you're trying something really original and unique or pushing said hardware to the max. Then there are the things I look out for in games personally: sound and music that feels designed for the environment you're in, not just some overly orchestrated, forgettable soundtrack. Also, attention to detail within reason of the game you're playing, which further leads into the immersion of the player within the game world. And then there's the gameplay that should, above all else, I feel, be fun, naturally based off the premise of the game itself. Of course, I'll let certain things slide to a degree. These are video games after all, and many parts of the way they are created and designed will always lead to possible missteps. But still, there are some things that should be the highest priority to get right. Breath of the Wild, for the size of the game and what it wants to do, achieves everything near flawlessly. Is the game perfect? No, because as we know, there is no such thing as perfection. Is the game perfect for me? Absolutely. For me, it stands above those near perfectly executed games, those Metroid Primes and Links to the Past, those games whose core concepts and deliveries of those core concepts are as close to gaming perfection as you're going to get before personal preference comes in. The music in this game I personally found to be beautiful, and it's now one of my favorite gaming soundtracks ever. Once again, each soundtrack has been carefully crafted for each area and moment that you're in. Using a piano, the composers have, in my opinion, managed to capture the essence of the wind and magical intrigue of the wild outdoors. Similar to how I feel the music of water. If water had music, similar to how the music of water was captured in Jolly Roger Bay in Super Mario 64, the water level in Donkey Kong Country on the SNES, or the underwater frigate in Metroid Prime. Music, like everything else, will always be a personal thing, but I think we, could all collectively agree to a certain level that the music in Breath of the Wild is not awful. It just, I feel like it would be foolish to say something like that. The controls in the game are wonderful and rarely falter. I think more credit should be given to how easy it is to ride your horse. You know, Mount the horse from any angle and Link will give a different animation. I personally always tried to pull a Legolas when mounting a horse, which never got old as Link jumped on a horse and somersaulted it from the front. It's absolutely brilliant. The horses move in varying paces and all work beautifully. I especially loved how you could hold a button down when the horse is stationary and then move the horse in little steps that helps it navigate uneven terrain far more effectively. Or even the ability to easily land on a horse from a height. It just all felt so effortless. Then there's the mounted combat. Once again, everything is so effortless, from swinging your sword, firing your arrows, to even dismounting and slowing down time for the moment to deliver slow motion kill shots. The general controls in the game are all functional with no real issues, other than personal preference of button layouts perhaps. The combat in the game is the best in the series by far, not just because swinging or throwing your weapons works well, but because the weapons in this game are also the world itself. Never have I felt that I've had so many options to tackle any given combat situation, not just through the character's core skills, but also through use of the environment. And you think that this affects just you? Well, think again. The enemies in this game are a joy to combat as well, each reacting to the player in different and fun ways, making every fight feel fun. Even the simple ones, it's just utter joy. The monsters vary, although not as greatly as other titles, but their designs, along with the wealth of other NPCs in the game, are truly fantastic. You can just see the effort that has been put in. Then there's the puzzles in the game. Regardless of how you may feel about length or difficulty, they all work and can be tackled in any way that the player can think of. This level of creativity will bring a smile to your face no matter what the difficulty. Just the sheer genius of some of these puzzles are a joy to see unfold. Like I said, no matter how simple they are, they're just an absolute joy to watch. It's it's an important thing to remember about this game. Every single player will have a different experience with virtually every single aspect of it because the game offers this level of freedom and creativity. Then there's the weather, another fantastic highlight for the game, and for me, the best weather system in a game, period. And the last one I could think of that really felt great like this, which weather was designed for, was Wave Race Blue Storm on the GameCube. The lightning storms in Breath of the Wild are utterly terrifying when you first encounter them, forcing the player to think about what they're wearing and where they are, or they run the risk of being struck by lightning. Simple yet wonderful things like sun showers casting a light drizzle over the world, as well as producing rainbows that span the beautiful skyline, as well as snowstorms that create heavy layers of snow, making your progression slow and difficult unless you whip out your shield and start snowboarding. Another great joy of the game. And finally, we have the physics engine. Arguably the best and most fun physics engine ever created in a video game. It has an ever, this is the important thing, it has an ever present effect on the world. One that sings and dances with the gameplay, weather, and the environment near flawlessly. An incredible achievement. It's something that takes itself seriously as well as not so seriously, knowing that it has to work, but it also has to be fun for the player. Are there things I miss from previous Zelda titles? Of course, but that was the same for those Zelda titles as well. It's near impossible to include every item or gameplay element from a previous title in the next one. The main thing for me is that Breath of the Wild doesn't need them, because what it has already creates its own unique game and experience, something that's important for all games. To describe in one word my experience with Breath of the Wild, I'd probably describe it as besotted. It consumed my life for over a month, where I played it every single day until that fateful day where my wife hid my controller. I thought about the game every single day, and I couldn't wait to get back into it. I haven't had this level of addiction to a game since my peak moments playing the World of Warcraft, and even then, the sheer enjoyment of Breath of the Wild for me puts World of Warcraft to shame. If you love video games, you simply must play this game. There's no two ways about it. Breath of the Wild is simply, for me, the best game ever made. And I can say that with more confidence than I've ever had for any other game. And my experience with it will last me for my gaming lifetime. What other game could possibly top it in the future? Well, that's an exciting prospect, is it not?